Hey, so you're thinking about moving to Placerville, California?
Yeah, well, you're definitely in the right place, right?
Yes. Thanks for joining us. It's Renee and Mike with the Friedrich team and the Living in Sacramento YouTube channel. So thanks for being here.
And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button right here below.
Yeah, or the bell for alerts so that you're the first to know about everything here living in Sacramento and the great surrounding areas like Placerville.
All right. And with that, let's jump into our pros and cons.
Pros and cons of Placerville, California.
And there's lots, right? And
Yeah.
I always like to start out with a fun fact. So if you haven't watched the vlog yet, right, then you don't know that Placerville used to be called, the first name it appears in the historic books is called Old Dry Diggins.
Yes.
And then shortly after they discovered the gold.
Right. Then it had a little bit of a sordid past, you could say, and there's actually still lots of remnants of that of the past name that was right after the Old Dry Diggins, which was Hangtown.
Hangtown. But then they figured out that's probably not the coolest name to have. And then so I think in the 1850s, shortly thereafter, they actually after the first post office was established in 1850, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they moved to the city of Placerville, which actually comes from the way that they did the gold mining. It was the placer mining. So there's your fun fact and a little history lesson on Placerville.
Yes.
And let's start out with a pro.
Let's do it.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. So I think a huge pro for Placerville, and in no particular order, of course, is definitely all of the things that you can do in Placerville. So there's the river going through, of course, like Mike said, Coloma's really close by. So you've got all of the historic gold mining that you can go check out. There's the Rubicon Trail that's really close by. And just, I mean, a ton of hiking, biking, like you name it. If you love outdoor stuff, there's all sorts of things to do in Placerville.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're driving up 50 towards Lake Tahoe, it's maybe a 20-minute drive and you're actually in the middle of the Sierra National Forest.
That is true also.
Which is really cool. I mean, there's definitely a lot to do, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you kind of are at that point where you're, in the wintertime, you're going to get snow, but it's not going to like stay on the ground for forever too. So you've got a little bit more variable seasons as well, which I think is also a pro for most people. And you're right at that point where you go from oak trees to pine trees. So you've got a little bit of an adjustment because it does start to get, even more into the foothills than some of our lower areas of El Dorado County.
I love when you say that because a lot of people don't know that there is actually a difference when it's getting too high where there are no longer any oak trees, which we are pretty well known for in California, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So no, definitely a great spot and lots to do. And we kind of mentioned it already, the proximity to Lake Tahoe is phenomenal. I mean, if you are if you've seen the Folsom, you're about 2 hours away from Lake Tahoe. If you're in Placerville, you're actually 30 minutes closer. And so you could be in South Lake Tahoe on a day without any traffic. Or
almost an hour.
Or any road rock slides and stuff like that happens, right? Yeah. In an hour, right? Definitely in the ski resort in Sierra at Tahoe. So that's pretty cool. And then there's a lot of restaurants too that like locally owned, so it's not your typical chain restaurants and things like that.
There's a couple chain restaurants too.
Well,
like there's a Round Table where actually on our way to our wedding, we made all of our family stop and get pizza at Round Table in Placerville.
Which for some of the Germans was the first experience to American pizza.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. So there are some chains, and there's some really, really great locally owned restaurants. Like I mentioned when we were walking around downtown on the video blog tour, the Independent, Enchanted Forest. There was, oh my gosh, Sweetie Pies. Yeah. There's a whole slew of restaurants, especially along Main Street, that are just so much fun to go to. And we should probably move on to a con though.
Yeah.
So we've been talking pros for like 5 minutes.
Because I think the pros outweigh the cons by far.
Almost always.
Right?
In almost every community, you guys. We've got such great, wonderful communities here in Northern California that yes, we're biased to our region. So
but I mean, since we are on the main street and the local stuff, I mean that is what you get. It's a local historic town, right? Of just about 10,000, give or take, maybe 11,000 people.
I think it's just under 11,000 now.
It's just under 11, right? Yeah. So it's definitely got that small town flair, but lots of history, and that's definitely a pro for me.
Oh gosh,
if
for
you're
sure.
into that
I mean,
stuff.
walking around downtown, you've got antique shops, and it just feels like you stepped back in time.
Yeah.
100%.
And there's an Ace Hardware that's like been there forever, right?
Right.
One of my favorite stores.
Yeah, if you can't find Mike, he's probably at an Ace someplace.
All right, but let's
So-
truly move on to maybe a con.
Yes.
Which one would you want to pick first?
Well, it's also a something to do, and it's also, so it's a pro and a con again.
Okay, let's start with the pro then, since
okay.
we're still on the pros.
So Apple Hill.
Yeah.
Especially, right now it's fall, but,
Mhm.
hopefully you're watching this any time of year. And especially in the fall, Apple Hill is so busy, so popular. You've got, pumpkin patches, the apple orchards. You can go up there and get the most amazing apple donuts like you've ever tasted in your life. Apple pies.
Oh, the apple pie! I love those apple pies. With me,
Oh, my
even
gosh.
throughout the year, right? Even if it's not apple time,
Yes.
we'll stop there. It's what is the place called that we love?
The Boa.
The Boa, exactly.
It's
And
not the Boa. It's Boa
It's
Orchards.
Boa.
Yeah.
The Boa would probably either be the fashion thing or the snake.
Or the snake.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's not what we're talking about.
No
We're
such
talking
things
about
in
Boa
Placerville.
Orchards. Yeah.
But-
but there's so many
Yeah.
that
Oh.
there's like no shortage.
But that
of,
apple pie that I'm talking about, it's frozen, so you just put it in the freezer, and then
When you're
fall
ready.
comes around, or whenever you're ready, you drop
or
it in the in
like
the
buy
oven.
it in the fall when it's fresh, keep it in the freezer, and then bring it out for beautiful 4th of
You
July.
could do that too.
So
yeah.
yes,
So,
but
but
it is
not-
a con.
no, but it is a con. Yeah,
The traffic
it's
during
horrid.
Apple Hill season is so ridiculous. They tried something new this year with keeping the lights green all the way through town.
Mhm.
So there are stoplights on Highway 50 going up through Placerville, and they tried an experiment, and I think it failed. Like, it definitely kept the traffic flowing on the freeway, but it kept the traffic completely vacant all through town. So the businesses, and I haven't seen a lot of talk from the businesses,
Mhm.
but I mean, when I was up there one of these last weekends, it was hard to get to downtown because of the lights being all green all the way through. And there was nobody out. So it was a little bit sad, and I hope they don't do that
Yeah.
continuing on. But if they don't, I mean, you literally have stop and go traffic all through Placerville just
Right.
getting past to get up to Apple Hill.
Which is, Apple Hill, it's about 4 exits just outside of Placerville,
Mhm.
and it's all along Highway 50, which at that point, it's actually, it's 2 lanes in each direction, but it's not really the freeway or highway yet. It's just a fast lane, right? But
Right.
like Renee said, turn lanes and stop signs and stop lights. So,
Right. The
It's-
traffic is, it's pretty
I mean,
crazy.
especially when on holidays, even without the Apple Hill traffic, right? When people
Yes.
are coming down from Lake Tahoe
We're heading up to
or
Lake
heading
Tahoe.
up to Lake Tahoe with chain controls. It's always fun.
Yeah, like we talked about just a minute ago, we do start to get into snow right about Placerville. So if not in Placerville, right after, a lot of times you do have chain control, which can also lead to heavy traffic on
Right.
Highway 50. So
But let's move back to a pro,
Yeah.
which it's in the middle of wine country, guys. So of course we're making a reference to wine.
of
again.
course we are.
Kids, if you know us, you know that's why we're talking about food and wine
Yes.
and fun things to do. So it's in the middle of wine country. It's actually Placerville is the
County seat.
county seat. Is that the word you say?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, for
The
Eldorado
county
County.
seat for El Dorado County, and there's some local wineries actually we belong to.
Yes, actually, again, just referencing back to that video tour that I did with you guys when I took you all around Placerville, we ended at Boger, which is one of our favorites.
Right.
And I think because they're about the same age as us.
Yeah.
So they just turned 50 this year, I think. And
And I told everybody how old we are.
I know.
Oh.
Well, it's no big secret. So anyway, so we're around that.
Yeah.
So Boger is one of our favorites, but there's so many more too. And then all the way, like starting in Placerville, up into Camino and then down to Somerset. There's Too Good is amazing. That's close by. There's, oh my gosh, I can't think of it right now.
Well, we'll put it in the description.
We'll put some links in
Yeah.
the description of some of our other favorites, or I'll probably think of it as we're talking here.
And we're well known for Zins here, right?
We have some really nice big jammy reds here in the foothills. I think it's just, the climate just really lends itself to like really rich, beautiful red wines.
That's good. And that's a pro, and there's no con associated with it.
Not that I can think of.
Unless the next morning you consider that a con.
Hey, if you drink good wine, you shouldn't get hangovers, right? So.
But then here we are back in El Dorado County, right? And there's a con because electricity is provided by PG&E, unless you're off the grid with your solar system, which more and more people are.
We're getting people there for sure.
But there's a really good number that still has PG&E, and with PG&E comes, and with the foothills and the power lines, it's not just the increased price in per kilowatt hour that you're paying with PG&E versus like a SMUD in Sacramento County, a city of Roseville Electric, but we have those power shutoffs.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, especially in the last few years with all of the exposure that PG&E's had with all of the fires here in the area. They are so much more careful now, which is great. I mean, we definitely don't, I would rather have no power than have a fire.
Absolutely.
Any day of the week. And you do have those days where, they're like, oh, hey, we're going to just be doing some, power shutoffs.
Public power shutoffs, PPAs, right?
Yeah. Something like that.
Something like that.
We have a few clients that work for PG&E, and they always keep us informed on all the goings-on.
But I mean, like you said, right? PG&E is working on the grid, and they've installed additional equipment, so they don't have to have those widespread power outages. They can actually more localize now how they turn off the power. And they're really fast in bringing it back once.
Oh gosh, so much faster than a few years ago.
Maybe I can find that video where we have the helicopter. They actually literally bring up the helicopter as soon as it gets lighter after the power shut off, and they patrol the power lines to make sure they are safe to go. So it's pretty impressive to see.
It is impressive. They've worked really hard. They're definitely clearing power lines and cutting down trees that are impeding on power lines to really make sure that we're much safer than we have been in years past. And they're finally starting to put the lines underground, which is going to be years in the making.
Right, and super expensive.
Right. So we'll probably see those power costs go up even.
But it will help, which is another con. It will help with the fire insurance, because right now in ports, especially Placerville, we had a big fire last year, the Caldo fire, right? And that was so devastating that the insurance commissioner actually set in place a moratorium.
It's true, yeah.
Which in return won't let the insurance companies actually write new policies. So when you're buying a house in the Placerville area or in certain zip codes, you do have to deal with the California Fair Plan, which tends to be a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, and we definitely have some great connections with that. So whether you're watching this and you're already local and maybe your insurance company is threatening to drop you, or you're looking to buy from out of the area, we've got a handful of really great insurance agents that can help find that great policy for you, because there are almost always less expensive alternatives.
And frankly, before we even start looking with our clients, we always
we talk about
the insurance, and we'll get quotes for areas that people are interested in, just so that there's not that sticker shock at the end, right, when it's kind of too late.
Yes. Yeah, we've had that happen too.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily to our buyers, but with buyers that were buying our listings.
And I'm peeking over the camera so I can see the notes right now.
Yeah, what's next?
Well, I think we covered pretty much all the pros already.
Oh, not housing.
No, okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, we are real estate agents. We probably should talk about housing. And the thing that I love about Placerville is your dollar actually goes further in Placerville than it does in other parts of the Sacramento region. So
it sure does, yeah.
You just looked up some stats. You can actually get into homes for in the 300s.
Yeah, in the low 300s, right? The most expensive one in the last 30 days actually sold for 1.4, which is not that crazy, right? That's probably a winery. I looked at the sizes too of the lots. You can, although it's a really rural area, I was surprised that there was a lot that was 0.08 acres, which is, what is that, like 4,000 square feet or less than that? Maybe 3,500, something like that. You would need to do the math. But then the biggest house, the biggest lot that sold, or house on the lot, I would say, was 20 acres, right? So that's likely probably a winery or brewery. We didn't talk about the breweries yet.
We haven't talked about the breweries yet.
Table that for a second, because we were talking about housing, right?
Yeah, there's actually a handful of wineries that are for sale right now in all of El Dorado County. So if your dream is to retire, move from the Bay Area, cash out on your home that you've been in for 30 years, and come live the good life in El Dorado County, there's some really fun opportunities right
or you
now.
just want a project and you want to create a wedding venue. That a lot of the wineries,
Yes.
or breweries or orchards, right? They all have that event aspect to it.
Yes, that's true.
Because some of them have really nice grounds, not nice views in some instances too, right?
Yeah.
But so there's lots to do, really.
And then back to housing, though, what was the average price? Or
the median price in the last 30 days, and that actually just came down from July, and we are at 530, and the average was just under 600, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so not too bad. The average household income is just under 72,000 for the year. So on that average income, that kind of home, the median home, is going to be somewhat difficult with current interest rates, but hopefully they'll come down again, and then it'll be much more affordable again.
Yes.
Right.
And I mean, what's interesting is we have a lot of people that live in Placerville that commute down into, El Dorado Hills, Sacramento. Right. And so, we'll probably see that median income, I would think, go up here with the number of people that are able to work from home and commute in just on fewer days.
And so now you just reminded me there is another con, because overall jobs, there's not a whole ton of jobs available in Placerville, right? Like Renee just said, most of the people are commuting down to Sacramento, Folsom, over to Roseville, Auburn, right?
Right. There are a couple easy ways to get over to Auburn, so that does open things up too. If you're more of a North Lake Tahoe person, you can cut over and get up to Truckee and North Lake Tahoe. I love Tahoe, if you guys haven't figured that out. So food, wine, and Tahoe. Those are my top three.
And we almost lost her to being a dealer at one of the casinos, but
a long time ago. Yeah, that would have been a long time ago. My life would have looked different.
Okay, so just to wrap up the schools, we need to talk about the schools. There's not a whole ton of schools because there's not a big population.
Right. Yeah, 11,000 people. There's not going to be a crazy number of kids that need schools. With that.
And I think because of that, the schools are B- rated. So it's not the world. It's not the end of the world, right? But if you're comparing it to the A+ and A in Folsom or Roseville, it's a difference.
Right.
Yeah. But it's, again, there's also private schools. There
are some private schools. There's one in Shingle Springs, which is super close, and then a handful in El Dorado Hills, and then, of course, in Folsom as well. And then I'm always surprised at how many people commute their kids down to Sacramento to go to some of the private schools in Sacramento, all the way from out here. And, especially because we cover all three counties, we're in and out of Sacramento like several times a week, if not more. And so that's always... an
option.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people are really choosing Placerville just to be away from the craziness, because it is still close enough to all the amenities in Folsom, El Dorado Hills, even Sacramento, right? It's just a quick 30, 45 minutes away.
And you have all the main stuff that you need in town too. Like you have a Target and a Walmart and
a Home Depot.
and an Ace. Don't forget Ace.
And Tesla charging stations.
And there are Tesla charging stations in Placerville too. There's an In-N-Out Burger. I mean, really, you don't even have to leave town if you don't want to.
No.
Some of the other employers that you're talking about, that there aren't a ton of jobs, but because the county seat is there, we have a lot of people that work for the county of El Dorado. El Dorado Sheriff, I think that's a huge amenity or huge pro.
And they just have this beautiful new facility.
They do.
So I hope you get to go there. You don't have to go there, right? So we have,
he said,
we have a little tour that we still haven't.
Oh my gosh, we won a tour at a silent auction, and we still haven't cashed in because we won it right before COVID, and so we never got the opportunity.
Maybe it's still.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they let us. But I think that the sheriff, they're so responsive and they're really just so involved with the community. I think that's another huge pro that we didn't even have on our list.
Right.
So.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
The community involvement is and the proximity. I mean, just the way they show up is beautiful.
And you've got the El Dorado County Fairgrounds are right in Placerville, so. You've got the El Dorado County Fair. You have there's home shows that happen. There's a gun show coming up.
Yeah, if you're into guns, there's always a gun show.
There's always a gun show. It is a little bit more of a conservative, I would say, politically. Yeah. And so you just like if you're thinking about moving to the area and Placerville's on your list, just reach out to us because we'd love to answer any questions that you have and really get through the pros and cons and see which outweighs which for you.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Definitely. And with that, again, don't be a stranger. Reach out, and we get a lot of questions from people just like you.
Every single day.
Yeah, and we love answering them. So
definitely. So if you're looking to make a move to the Sacramento region, and especially, like we're talking about today, to Placerville, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to help you make a smooth move.
Yeah, and with that, have a great day.
Bye-bye.